Let's go back to Alberta, High River in particular, because officials are warning residents in the town of dangerous water levels and scarce resources. Despite authorities advising people to steer clear of the area, many are refusing to leave. Josh Gurnick joins us live just outside High River, Alberta. Josh, how have the people been warned about what's coming?
Well, Pat, they're making it as just transparent as possible, going to the media, having police make the rounds. But the point is that this is a very special situation, because it's not like Calgary where this water has dissipated and now they're into the cleanup mode. And I can show you real quick behind me. Take a look at this big body of water right here. Okay, yes, this is water from the Highwood River when it overflowed. But guess what? This isn't the river. This is what's left over after the river breached, all right? This town is pretty much underwater. Now, you can see that they've started to build some berms. That's that big dirt road behind me to try and make some sort of access to the town. But still, the 13,000 people that live here, they cannot go home. And that is very, very frustrating, because a lot of their homes are not underwater. They are standing. But the point is that if you were to go and look over here to where the town is, you see that a lot of it is underwater, and it's the fact that it's those, the access points of where people cannot go in to run the city services. That includes things like electricity, like the running water, like even the grocery stores, all right? And so that means that when people who are staying behind want to try and go on with their lives, they can't, all right? Every single time that they flush the toilet, that sewage is going right out into the streets. There's nothing that they can do to help them. And so when they're saying to these 1,000, what they are saying to these 1,000 people that did decide to stay behind despite the evacuation orders, they're saying, hey, that's your choice. We're not going to have the RCMP come over and force you to do anything that you don't want to do, but just know that we can't help you out. We are not going to divert resources getting fresh water and food to you when we have a bigger job of cleaning up things here and getting this town back on track. Pat?
Josh, are they totally cut off at this point? I mean, is there a chance for them to still get out?
So that's the crazy thing, is that, like I said, behind me, they're building these berms. So they're in the process of really reconnecting these towns. But until they get all of this standing water out of here, they can't get things back to track. They can't do those essential services like groceries, like sewage and such. And so they're saying that it could be as long as a week before people can go back to their homes, which you have to imagine is very frustrating when just 45 minutes north, the people of Calgary are starting to get back to normal. They're at least starting to clean up their homes and such. And people here, of course, are frustrated. We had an incident of a 24-year-old man on Sunday trying to get past a police barricade with a knife to go check on his dog. These are just simple things that people want to do. People want to get back to check on their pets, to get essential medicines, and yet they can't. And when they can go and look across this body of water to see and just look at their home that is standing there high and dry, you have to imagine it is just terribly frustrating. Pat?
Josh, thank you so much. I see you're on safe ground, so stay that way.
Will do.
Okay. Coming up. Good morning. This is AM Agenda. I'm Pat Ballin. Tuesday, June the 25th. Our top story, high risk in High River. Authorities are urging residents to leave the Alberta town, but hundreds remain at home. Josh Gurnick is live on the scene. Plus, Albertans are now facing the high costs of a cleanup. Mike Blanchard is live in Calgary with the province pledging to help. But first, here's what else is on your AM Agenda. Oh, stay out of High River, Alberta. That's the message from officials who are warning residents of dangerous water levels and scarce resources. Despite authorities advising people to steer clear of the area, many are refusing to leave. Now, Josh Gurnick joins us live outside High River, Alberta, with a guest. Lieutenant Colonel Nick Grimshaw is commander of the Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry. Josh, go ahead.
Well, Pat, as you just said, we have Nick Grimshaw of the Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry 1st Battalion. He and 400 of his men have been here since Friday, helping out here in High River. And Colonel, what have you been doing?
We've been assisting the municipal authorities and the RCMP with moving through the area. finding people, essentially a search and rescue operation initially, and transitioning to a recovery operation.
Now, I understand you've been going door to door trying to get people to understand just how dangerous the situation is, but some people are refusing to leave. Tell me about that.
Yeah, there's a number of people that are still in the city that are refusing to leave. Their houses are in various states of repair or disrepair and damage. Some houses haven't really been touched, and others are completely destroyed in some regards. So people are reluctant to leave because their homes seem to be intact, but there are some dangers here that they need to be aware of.
I understand their houses may not be underwater, but it's the city infrastructure, right?
That's right.
Tell me about that. Is not in place.
Right, so the sewers were all backed up and they're not functioning yet. The water was not potable right now, so that needs to be worked on, and the city officials are working very, very hard to do exactly that. And the power has not been restored throughout the city either, so they're very concerned that the more the people stay in the city, the harder it will be to get all this critical infrastructure up and running again.
Now, you have to understand, though, for these people, it must be very frustrating to look across a body of water and see their house untouched. Can you at least empathize with them?
Absolutely. My soldiers and I have been walking around and speaking with them and understand the frustrations that they are experiencing, but really it's for their own safety. It's a health and safety issue right now, and the mayor has made it very clear that he needs the people to get out of the city so they can get this critical infrastructure restored and then get people back in as quickly as possible.
What would you like people to know here in Alberta about what's going on in High River?
That the city officials, municipal authorities, the provincial government are working extremely hard to get things back up and running in this city. A lot of progress has been made and more assistance is coming. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but they are working extremely hard to get it working.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. That was Lieutenant Colonel Nick Grimshaw. Back to you, Pat.
Okay, Josh, thanks very much. So while people in High River are being told to leave, people in Calgary... Good morning. This is the third hour of AM Agenda. I'm Pat Ballin. Tuesday, June the 25th. Our top story, high risk in High River. Authorities are urging residents to leave the Alberta town, but hundreds remain at home. Josh Gernick is live on the scene. Plus, Albertans are now facing the costs of cleanup. Mike Blanchard is live in Calgary with how the province is pledging to help. But first, here's what else is we're watching on AM Agenda. Message from officials who are warning residents of dangerous water levels and scarce resources. Despite authorities advising people to steer clear of the area, many are refusing to leave. Josh Gernick joins us live just outside of High River, Alberta. Hi, Josh. What's the latest there?
Well, Pat, of those 13,000 people under mandatory evacuation, 1,000 of them said, hey, we're not leaving. This is our home. We don't think anything's wrong, and we're going to stay right put. But you have to understand the situation here. Okay, so if we take a look at High River across some ways here, you can see it actually kind of looks like a town on the side of a lake, all right? Many of these homes aren't affected by the flooding. They're high and dry. But now let's take a look at that lake I was just talking about right over here. If we were to turn the camera real quick to the berm behind me, you're going to see what looks like a dirt road crossing a body of water. Okay, guess what? That body of water is not a lake. That's the residue left over from the High River when it overflowed its banks, all right? And so this water is not going anywhere. Now you can see that they've begun to try and create a berm across this body of water, but still, the point is there's no infrastructure here. There's no one here available to run things like the city power, the city water. There's no grocery stores. So for these 1,000 people that are staying, yeah, their homes might be all right, but there's nothing here for them to, go about their daily lives. And so officials are saying, hey guys, we're not going to force you to leave, all right? That's your decision. But if you run out of water, you run out of food, we're not going to go and take our time and resources trucking it in. We need to use those resources in order to get this town back into the shape it needs to be. Here's Alberta Minister of Municipal Affairs Doug Griffiths on that subject.
They're running short of essentials because they remain in a town that has no supply of fresh water, no sewer, and no grocery store. They need to leave the town. It would be for all the emergency personnel we have that are working right now to check the safety of the bridges and the roads and the houses that are trying to pump water and restore services, get the water. For anyone to take those people away to bring in pallets of water for people because they refuse to leave is absurd.
So, Pat, the thing is that these people, understandably, they're frustrated. The officials are frustrated, and it's a pretty bad situation. It can't really be compared to Calgary, where people are already starting to try and get back to the way their lives need to be. These people, they want to do that, but they just simply can't. And so officials are having a hard time telling them when this can happen, when they can try to get back to their lives, because they don't know when all this water is going to recede. They say it could be up to a week before this town can get back to normal. Pat.
Okay, Josh. You'd think they'd want some food. Thanks so much, though.
Of course.
While people in High River are being told,
and officials warn about dangerous water levels and scarce resources. The town is basically non-functional right now, but get this, folks, many residents refuse to leave. Let's get the latest on this story from Josh Skornick, who is in High River right now. Josh, what's going on here?
Well, it's about 1,000 people. That's what's going on. 1,000 of the 13,000 who have a mandatory evacuation to leave this town that's about 45 minutes southwest of Calgary, they're saying, no, we're not going to go. This is our home. We don't see what the problem is. Well, I want to show you what the problem is. Look right behind me, okay?
Wow.
See this big body of water? Yeah. Guess what? That's not a lake, all right? That's what's left over from when the Highwood River overflowed its banks, all right? This water is stagnant. It's not going anywhere. Now you can see that berm right there, that dirt road.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to build right now in order to kind of reconnect the town to things. But what that is showing is that this town can't really be compared to what's going on in Calgary right now. Those people are getting things back in order, right? There's a ton of damage, but at least they're able to go and check out their homes, see what's wrong, and try and start looking at the situation and seeing what they need to do to get back to work, back to their lives. So here we have the situation where they don't have the infrastructure yet to do those things. They don't have electricity. They don't have water. Their sewage, the sewage isn't working. So when people flush the toilets, it goes out on the street. Okay.
Oh no.
And so, yeah, and a lot of people are frustrated, right? Because if you look at the city, these houses, it actually looks like they're on a lakefront property, okay? A lot of the houses are not flooded. And so the residents here, they're saying, hey, my house is okay. Why can't I go back? Well, the reason is because what I just told you. The officials here, they can't take care of them, all right? They can't feed them. They can't give them water. And so the 1,000 people that are staying here, they're complaining, hey, we're running out of stuff. Well, the officials...
All right, clearly, look, we lost Josh Skornick there in High River, Alberta. Clearly a big mess just waiting to happen, it seems. Do we have Josh now? Do we want to go back? All right, Josh, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, and so, anyways, long story short, the people here are frustrated because they see their houses being all right, and yet they can't go back. The officials are saying, hey, we can't take care of you, and we cannot divert our resources to taking care of you. So this is what they had to say. Here's one of the officials.
I am not, I repeat, I'm not, and the community will not either, direct resources to supply people time and energy and resources who refuse to leave, because that distracts and takes away all our capability in getting the town back up and running so people can go back in. They need, if they care about their community and the other people in it, they need to leave. And I don't think anyone will call in water supplies for people who refuse to follow the order.
So you heard it right there, pretty strong words telling the people what they need to do. So the thing is, they can't say when people can get back, all right? It could be up to a week before they get everything in order. And later on today, we're going to actually get a tour of the city in order to see just exactly what they're all talking about.
Okay, that was the Municipal Affairs Minister sounding off a bit. And Josh, it's really significant to point out that while people may feel like they're being heroic holding down their property come hell or high water, as Calgarians are saying right now with respect to the stampede, it's also putting other folks at risk, emergency officials, folks that may have to go in and rescue these guys after the fact.
Well, exactly. You know, these emergency officials right now, they are stressed to the max, all right? They actually had the Canadian Armed Forces here, about 400 people, come into this city to help out with knocking on doors. It's just simply doing that, telling these people, hey, we need you to leave. And we actually had an interview a couple of hours ago with one of the lieutenant colonels there, and he said the exact same thing as what you heard from that Alberta minister, that, hey, guys, we are trying to do our part, right? We want to help you out, but you got to help us too.
Absolutely. All right, Josh, we're going to check in with you later on Canada Live. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Meantime, the community is in a state of emergency, and officials warn about dangerous water levels and scarce resources. The town is basically non-functional right now, but get this, folks, many residents refuse to leave. Let's find out what that's all about with Josh Skurnik, who is in High River right now. So, Josh, these folks will not leave. How many people are we talking about here?
Well, we're talking about 1,000 here, Anita. It's out of 13,000 that have a mandatory evacuation of this town of about 13,000. That's about 45 minutes southwest of Calgary. And you have to understand, the mayor said that what happened here is unprecedented, all right? You can't compare it to what happened in Calgary for the fact of people in Calgary are now starting to get back to their lives, right? They're getting to their homes, seeing what the damage is and such. People here, they've been evacuated since Thursday, and there's no telling when they can come back. And of course, frustrations are running high. We had an instance of this past Sunday, a 24-year-old man with a knife trying to get past a police blockade to go check on his dog, all right? People want to go see their homes, see what happened and such. But I want to show you what they're dealing with right now. If you look behind me, you can see this massive amount of water just sitting here, okay? Guess what? This isn't the river that overflowed, the Highwood River. This is what was left over from that river after it broke its banks, all right? So this water is not going anywhere, right? And so what that does is it makes it so that travel to the city is very tough. You can see they've actually built a berm right there, which they're going to try and get functional so that people, actual residents, can start to get back into their homes. But the point of the matter is that in this case, they don't have any city functions, right? There's no sewers, all right? There's no electricity, there's no water, right? When people flush the toilet, it goes right into the street, okay?
Oh, dear.
And so given that, given that, city officials are saying, listen, we can't force you to leave, okay? Those 1,000 people, if you want to, listen, you're not going to, and we can't divert resources to you to take care of you. If you run out of water, well, you ran out of water, right? We can't truck it in. We need to focus our resources on. So that's what they're really saying. And if we listen to a clip here from.
All right. Josh was saying essentially that the municipal affairs minister is sounding off on this. Aggie, can we run that clip?
For those people who are in High River, because High River was evacuated, who refuse to leave, we have low supplies of water. There is no sewer hooked up yet, so every time they flush the toilet, it runs back out into the street. And there's no grocery store operating. So if they're short of supplies, they need to get out of town to allow the military personnel, the police, and the emergency operations folks to restore the town.
All right, just heard a big warning there from the Municipal Affairs Minister of Alberta, Doug Griffiths, and of course that was Josh Skurnik.
Themselves in danger by ignoring a mandatory evacuation alert. Josh Skurnik is on the scene with the details.
Well, it's 1,000 of the 13,000 people under that mandatory evacuation that decided, hey, we're not going to go anywhere, we're going to stay. And officials are saying that this is just not a good thing. And the reasoning is this, all right? They can't take care of them, all right? There's no power, there's no running water. Every single time these 1,000 people flush their toilets, all of that sewage goes into the streets. And the reason why they can't get the city back on track is that you can't really compare it to what's going on in Calgary right now. People there are able to go home and see what the damage is and such. If you look at the pictures, this city is still underwater. When that Highwood River overflowed, it left a huge amount of water behind, and that water is stagnant, it's not going anywhere. So these people, these 13,000 people under an evacuation order, They've been out of their homes since Thursday, and there's no telling when they can come back. And so officials say they understand the frustration, but of course they want, they say, to get these people back into their homes. And to do that, they say they need to focus their resources on cleaning up the mess. They can't focus on getting in food and water to these people who have decided to stay behind. Here's a clip from one of the ministers on this very subject.
For those people who are in High River, because High River was evacuated, who refuse to leave, we have low supplies of water. There is no sewer hooked up yet, so every time they flush the toilet, it runs back out into the street. And there's no grocery store operating. So if they're short of supplies, they need to get out of town to allow the military personnel, the police, and the emergency operations folks to restore the town.
So that was Municipal Affairs Minister Doug Griffiths on that subject, saying that, hey, people, please help your community. Get out of here and let us do our jobs to help you get back to normal. And now, like I said, emotions are running high. This past weekend, we had an instance of where a 24-year-old tried to break the police barricade with a knife. He wanted to go home to check on his dog. So this is just a tough situation for everyone here in this town of High River as they try to just make sense of this and try to move on with their lives.
That is Josh Skurnik reporting from High River, Alberta. Right now, though, I want to take you live to High River. Right now, the city is updating the media on the situation on the devastated town. Let's listen in.
I don't have an exact number, but it's not very many anymore. Most of the people that had stayed, a lot of them have now left as well.
Less than 300?
Do you have a better guesstimate on a timeline now?
We're getting very close to that, being able to announce that timeline. I don't have it today, so I don't want it, because that's exactly what it'd be. Would it be a guess? And it's very important that when we put that bar out there, that expectation, that we are able to meet it, because people out there want to get back to their homes as quickly as possible, and we're working hard to make sure that happens.
How do you address the critics who are saying that you're not providing enough information for the people of High River?
All I can tell you is that that's my full-time job all day long. This scrum and other news conferences all day long. I'm going from evac center to evac center and speaking to you folks in between to provide as much information as I can. There's also information on the Town of High River website and the Government of Alberta website.
Do you feel like the government's helping enough?
The Government of Alberta is doing fantastic work to support us. We have now, the announcement has already been made, but the Minister Rick Fraser is going to be sworn in here very shortly, and he will be the first community to have its own minister. He's the Minister of High River, and he's going to help us make sure that we do everything we need to rebuild the town properly, and his job is simple: make it happen.
Why is it taking so long?
What you don't understand is we don't have a flood. We have a disaster. Floods are very easy to deal with. Water comes, water goes, and then we clean up afterwards. This is a major disaster we're dealing with. It's at the same level as the Slave Lake fire that devastated that community. That's what we're dealing with, and that is a major reason we cannot have residents return to the Town of High River. It is simply not safe to be there.
Why can't people just go to check?
One at a time, please.
There are people in the town now. Are they running out of water? Are they running out of food?
I don't know what their own personal supplies are. We are presently cutting off all services to the people that are left in town.
What do you think about the folks that are seeking a court injunction to try and get back in?
Well, they can do whatever they like. It's not affecting our job at all. Our job is to get the town ready for reoccupation as quickly as possible.
A lot of people are saying that nobody knows how to deal with the flood better than the people who live in this town, because they've been through it before. It's 5 days later, they're still waiting to at least go check out their homes. Why not listen?
The problem, sir, is we can't let any more people in the community. We do not have sanitary sewer. We have no water for those folks. We have no utilities for those folks. When they get here, we have no gas for their cars. We don't have a grocery store open. We don't have a medical center. We don't have protective services for them. We don't have a drugstore for them. No business in town is open at this moment. It is not safe to be in our community. When it is safe, we will let everybody in as quickly as possible in an organized manner.
Why not organize tours, put people on buses so they can get things they need?
That will hamper our efforts. We need to keep the town as completely free of people that don't need to be there as much as possible. We have all kinds of equipment running around the town, clearing our roads and streets, working on our operations every day. We can't have more people in the community. It's as simple as that.
Can High River be saved? I mean, will entire neighborhoods need to be bulldozed
I mean, given the mold issues and the...
We will deal with each of those issues one at a time as we come across them. I'm fully confident we'll have High River back on the ground. We'll rebuild High River if necessary, where necessary, when necessary.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to have a few comments from the RCMP.
You know what? I'm going to let the operations, Brian. Do you want to say a few words? Absolutely.
Can you say your name as well? My name's Brian Cornforth. Last name spelled Cornforth.
And Brian is.
I'm Chief of Operations working with the High River team on getting back our services. As the Mayor has mentioned, we need to have clean water in the community. We need to have sanitary sewers available for people when they return. We need to have the essential services there in place and ready to go. We also have to deal with the road surfaces. We have a lot of debris that has to be cleared off the roads. We're working on making the community safe. And the message is, we're really working hard. We know these people want to come home and get back into their homes. That's first and foremost on everyone's mind. And we're working extremely, extremely hard to get this community back up and running. And it takes a lot of energy and a lot of resources. And we've had great support from the province, from our local community within the region, contractors, at getting those services back up and running. It is a challenge. We have had some severe water flooding issues into equipment that has to be slowly dismantled, dried, and returned to service. And until we can do that, that's our objective. We're working on our dewatering plants today. We've got many vehicles that are in the road areas that are trapped in neighborhoods. Vehicles are in places they shouldn't be. We need to remove those. As the Mayor mentioned, we need to get some of the essential community services back up and running and get the fuel availability for people when we bring them back. We are working on a re-entry plan, and that re-entry plan will be coming out in the next few days that we can work on, letting the residents know how we'll bring them back into the community and make sure when we do that they come back to a community that's safe and viable to live in.
Can you tell us about this berm? Why can't you estimate when they can get back in?
And that's a great question. The challenge is there are things that are outside of our control. An example is the amount of water that we have to move out of the community neighborhoods to make it safe to go back in and then to go and check those buildings with our building inspections teams. We have 5 building inspections teams. They're going in and clearing the houses. That takes time. So we are working extremely fast. We're resourcing it very heavily. We've got great cooperation from the province to bring in those technical experts, but it takes time. It takes time to dismantle a pump that pumps sewage, take it out of the hole, bring it up to the surface, wash the mud out of the area, rebuild the electrical controls. We have people working around the clock on this work, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're focusing on. That's the challenge. These things take time. We're going to get that community back up and running as fast as we can. We know those people want to come home. We absolutely understand that.
Oh, sorry. Can you tell us about the berm behind here and your efforts to drain this giant lake we're seeing?
What we're doing is we're cutting off the lake behind us so that we can actually pump down the neighborhood, and we're actually introducing 2 berms. There's another berm further south to this one that will help isolate, and we can take that.
Now joining us live from High River, Alberta is Joshua Skurnik. And Josh, the 13,000 residents have been under mandatory evacuation order since Thursday when this state of emergency was declared. But is it still a state of desperate times in High River?
Well, according to the mayor, it definitely is. He said that this is just not a flood. This is a disaster. He says that his town is just devastated. He said that 30 of the homes that they checked out, they couldn't even get into because they were too dangerous to enter. Now, we do have some new numbers. 300 of those 13,000 people under a mandatory evacuation, well, they are choosing to stay. But they say, according to the RCMP, that these people are in danger. It was just yesterday that they had to rescue 8 of them because they got in a situation that was just too dire and they needed some help. And the RCMP says that it's these instances of where people who chose to stay and then are getting into trouble where they need assistance out is what is hampering their work here in order to get the city into the shape it needs to be. You got to remember, they have nothing here. No running water, no electricity, no gas, no grocery stores. And that is part of the reason why the mayor says that people can't come back in to check on their homes. Like you said, people were evacuated on Thursday. This place has been blocked off since then. And so many people, we actually talked to a couple residences who are just so angry that they can't come in just to check on their homes and see what's wrong and if there's anything that they can do to start mitigating the damage. But to that, the mayor says, hey, if you're here, we don't have any gas for your cars. We don't have any grocery stores that you can go to get lunch or anything. There's nothing that we can do to take care of you. You have no bathrooms to go to. So that is the point he is trying to make. They also said that they are doing their best to rescue some pets that are in this city of 13,000, so a town of 13,000. And also, we do know that they are creating a security plan. They say that they are going to do their best in order to prevent any looters or such, and that they haven't had anything like that.
Absolutely devastating time for residents who are residing in High River, of course, who have been evacuated. Going forward, though, at what point in time do you think they will be allowed back? Has there been a set date for that as of yet?
That's just the thing. There hasn't been. And the example they show is that there's this huge body of water behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but see, that's not a lake. That's just overflow left over from the Highwood River that overflowed in this area. And they say that that's just an example of what's in the city. They have standing water all over the place. And they say that that standing water is making the situation even worse with mold and just infrastructure damage. And that until they can get that stuff out, it's going to be a long time before people can go back home.
No doubt, Josh, and hopefully the residents heed the mayor's remarks and that they stay out until it's safe for them to return. We appreciate you tracking this story for us, and we'll follow up with you again next hour.
Of course.
All right, that was Joshua Skurnik reporting live for us in High River. And as the floodwaters go down in Alberta, like fresh water, food, and power, and it's been almost an entire week since a state of emergency went into effect for the area. And Joshua Skurnik has been tracking this scenario live, and of course he's joining us from High River. Josh, we do have to talk about some of the 13,000 residents that have been under mandatory evacuation since Thursday. It's been a state of emergency, but are we still seeing very desperate times in High River? Has it improved at all?
Well, not according to the mayor. He says that this can't even be compared to what happened in Calgary, simply for the reason that people there are getting back to their homes. The city infrastructure is starting to see some light. Here, they are still underwater. And just for an example, 300 people of those 13,000 are remaining. They say that they are not going to go anywhere. This is their home. They are not going to leave. Well, the RCMP in a press conference just a little bit ago said that for an example of how dangerous this is, they had to rescue 8 people from their homes of those 300 that stayed. They said that they were in a situation that they thought was safe, and yet it got too dire, and they had to go in and do some work to get them out. And they say that's the perfect example of why everyone needs to leave. The RCMP and all the workers, they need to be allocating their resources to getting the city back on track, not providing food and water for the people here and rescuing them from situations that they shouldn't be in the first place. You have to remember, this city has nothing. It doesn't have running water. It doesn't have electricity. There's no gas stations. There's no grocery stores. The mayor here says that you cannot compare this to anything else here. It's not a flood. It's something entirely different. Let's listen to the mayor from just a little bit ago.
What you don't understand is we don't have a flood. We have a disaster. Floods are very easy to deal with. Water comes, water goes, and then we clean up afterwards. This is a major disaster we're dealing with. It's at the same level as the Slave Lake fire that devastated that community. That's what we're dealing with, and that is a major reason we cannot have residents return to the town of High River. It is simply not safe to be there.
Now, as you can imagine, though, those are some very strong words. Residents here who are peering across the land here that's flooded, they can see that their homes are high and dry, and it's just very frustrating to them that they can't even get back in to just see if things are all right, see if their belongings are safe, see if their house's foundations are in good order. But the point is that even people up top are noticing. Danielle Smith, the official opposition leader, well, she's also the MLA for this area, and she actually lives in High River, right behind me, and she came by and she gave her 2 cents on the situation. Here's Danielle Smith.
So the sense that I'm getting is that over the past 5 days, they have moved from being locally controlled, locally managed, embracing of volunteers to becoming more and more bureaucratic and less responsive to the needs of residents. And that's a real problem because the residents here actually are the experts. Just get them started. Let them get into at least one zone in town and get them started as a measure of goodwill to the community and as a signal that things are progressing, because you get the impression that this town is never going to reopen again. If you refuse to tell people when you're going to be able to start re-entry, how you're going to do the entry, whether it will be 2 days, 2 months, or 2 years, you're creating more fear than you need to. So here's the point. They can make whatever decisions they want. I'm not the decision maker here, but they have to start communicating.
So here you have a provincial official at odds with the mayor of the town, and that just shows how hard the situation is for everybody. Everyone's frustrated. Everyone wants to go home, but they know it's going to be a while before that can happen.
It's a devastating scenario, Josh. We thank you for having boots on the ground for the past few days. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Now, let's catch you up on the flood situation in southern Alberta. I want to do that every night. Our Joshua Skurnik starts things off in High River, Alberta tonight. Josh, take it away. What's going on?
Well, David, I'm at this town about 45 minutes southwest of Calgary where 13,000 people were forced to evacuate on Thursday. Well, we now know that 300 have refused to leave. They say that this is their home, they think it's safe, and they're here for the long haul. But the RCMP points out that just yesterday, they had to rescue 8 of those 300. Those people were in their homes in a situation they thought was safe, but it got bad real quick, and the RCMP had to pull them out. And that's just the thing the RCMP says they don't need to be doing. They say there's plenty of work just getting this town back in order. We have some fresh visuals that just came in from photographer Ed Dawson. He was allowed inside the town, and it is terrible. If you take a look, cars are flipped over. Houses have their foundations ripped out. This town really has nothing to offer anybody who wants to come in. They don't have any electricity. There's no plumbing. Every single time someone flushes the toilet, the sewage goes right out into the street. And to the residents who are now still evacuated and are looking to the people in Calgary who are going back to their homes, he says this is different. Calgary had a flood. We have something entirely not not the same. Let's listen to the mayor.
What you don't understand is we don't have a flood. We have a disaster. Floods are very easy to deal with. Water comes, water goes, and then we clean up afterwards. This is a major disaster we're dealing with. It's at the same level as the Slave Lake fire that devastated that community. That's what we're dealing with, and that is a major reason we cannot have residents return to the town of High River. It is simply not safe to be there.
And of course, the residents, they can look across the river here, the makeshift lake that's really behind me. That's all the residue or the remainder of the flooding. And they can see that some of their homes are all right. One of those people is Danielle Smith. She's the official opposition leader and also the MLA for this riding and a resident of High River. She says that these people need to get rid of the bureaucratic nonsense and just let the people get back in. Let's listen from her.
So the sense that I'm getting is that over the past 5 days, they have moved from being locally controlled, locally managed, embracing of volunteers to becoming more and more bureaucratic and less responsive to the needs of residents. And that's a real problem because the residents here actually are the experts. Just get them started. Let them get into at least one zone in town and get them started as a measure of goodwill to the community and as a signal that things are progressing, because you get the impression that this town is never going to reopen again. If you refuse to tell people when you're going to be able to start re-entry, how you're going to do the entry, whether it will be 2 days, 2 months, or 2 years, you're creating more fear than you need to. So here's the point. They can make whatever decisions they want. I'm not the decision maker here, but they have to start communicating.
So here you have a provincial official up against her local official. This is just a bad situation with no winners. Everyone wants to get back home, but they don't know when that's going to happen. David.
Joshua Skurnik in High River. Great report, Josh. Thanks so much.